Donald Trump is panicking as the full consequences of his failed negotiations with Iran in Islamabad, Pakistan, are setting in. As you are now aware, the Trump regime negotiators J.D. Vance, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner, at Donald Trump's orders, tried to change the pre-approved negotiating framework that was based on a 10-point plan that Iran made Donald Trump agree to before a ceasefire was announced. Donald Trump agreed to the 10-point plan, but then the Trump regime tried to bully and dictate the settlement terms at the Islamabad talks. Iran refused to accept those terms because Iran said we agreed on the 10-point plan. The negotiations fell apart after about 20 hours of purported negotiations. And now Donald Trump is posting that he will be doing a full United States naval blockade of the Persian Gulf, which he says he will block all tankers from every country from going into the Persian Gulf in order to bring back crude oil to their country. So Donald Trump's plan to open up the Strait of Hormuz is to further block the Strait of Hormuz right now by doing a blockade, because as you may be aware, Iran is conducting bilateral discussions with countries across the world to allow allies or even neutral countries to use the Strait of Hormuz at a cost of about $2 million per tanker. And some countries that are allied with Iran don't have to pay that fee. So for example, China and Russia, they have access to the Strait of Hormuz. India, France, numerous other countries, Pakistan, other countries have been able to utilize the Strait of Hormuz by negotiating specific deals with Iran. And now Donald Trump saying any of those ships, we will interdict, or we will what? We're going to attack those ships because the United States will be doing a full naval blockade of the Persian Gulf. Donald Trump posted the following message. So there you have it. The meeting went well. Most points were agreed to, but the only point that really mattered, nuclear, was not effective immediately. The United States Navy, the finest in the world, will begin the process of blockading any and all ships trying to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz. At some point, we will reach an all being allowed to go in, all being allowed to go out basis. But Iran has not allowed that to happen by merely saying there may be a mine out there somewhere that nobody knows about but them. This is world extortion, and leaders of countries, especially the United States, will never be extorted. The Trump regime says that as they were imposing extortionate terms on Iran after agreeing to Iran's 10-point negotiating framework, and the bad faith that was exhibited in Islamabad by the United States and Donald Trump is similar to what has happened before in late February and then back in June in negotiations with Iran. Donald Trump then posted another message that Iran promised to open the Strait of Hormuz. They knowingly failed to do so. This is causing anxiety, dislocation, and pain to many people and countries throughout the world. They say they put mines in the water, even though all of their Navy and most of their mine droppers have been completely blown up. They may have done so, but what ship owner would want to take the chance? There is great dishonor and permanent harm to the reputation of Iran. And then he goes on and just kind of rants and raves like a lunatic. And it's all projection. There's great dishonor right now to the reputation of the United States, and other countries are now having bilateral discussions with Iran. And what Donald Trump is, in essence, threatening a World War III, if you will, if you don't believe we're in one already. I mean, there was clearly a war involving the entire world. I don't want to get hyperbolic here, right? But there was a war involving pretty much all countries in the world. And now Donald Trump is saying the United States is going to impose a full naval blockade of the Persian Gulf to not allow Iran to do any types of deals with other countries, whether that country's France or the European Union or India or China. I mean, what's going to happen if a Chinese vessel shows up to enter the Strait of Hormuz? The naval blockade's going to attack the Chinese ships or the Russian ships or the Indian ships? Is that what the plan is? You have Iranian social media mocking this blockade concept. This is what they said. The new move from Trump against our country is so comical that we don't even have a meme for it, or we can't even find a meme for it. There's mocking Donald Trump and how pathetic he looks. Donald Trump then called into state regime media, which calls itself Fox, Maria Bartiromo, who was the host of the show that he called into. I mean, she was looking at him, frankly, like he was somebody who was like really suffering, almost in like hospice care. And she was looking at him like, oh my God, this guy is really like just totally lost it. And she says, is this going to be enough? The blockade? Is this going to be enough? Listen to what Donald Trump says. Here, play this clip.
I got it ended because of tariffs.
Mr. President,
the Supreme Court was not nice to me about.
Is this all going to be enough? The blockade in the Strait, the opening up capacity in the United States is this going to be enough to lower the price of oil and gas, sir?
Well, eventually it's going to be lowered. No, it might not happen initially, but it's going to go down. When this is all over, look, the stock market, the Dow hit 50,000. It was supposed to be in 4 or 5 years. They said it won't happen during his term, but it'll be maybe 4 or 5 years. It hit 50,000 in my first year. You know it better than anybody. You cover it better than anybody. The S&P hit.
Then she asks him, so do you believe that the price of oil and gas will be lower before the midterms? Listen to what he says here. Play this clip.
So do you believe the price of oil and gas will be lower before the midterm elections?
I hope so. I mean, I think so. It could be. It could be or the same or maybe a little bit higher. But it should be around the same. I think this won't be that much longer. They're wiped out, man. They're wiped out, and you don't get a fair shake. You don't get. We need a free and fair press in this country, and I don't even know why people would do that. Why would they say how wonderful they're doing militarily? They're doing so well. The country is wiped out.
And then he said that I was thinking about calling it the Gulf of Trump. My new plan, maybe I'll call the Persian Gulf the Gulf of Trump. I mean, this is what he's saying right now as he's threatened a naval blockade. And by the way, senior officials say the blockade, they claim that the blockade is going to be taking place and that Navy sending its assets in the and CENTCOM will be sending assets to blockade it. But Trump's talking about also changing the name to the Gulf of Trump. Let's play this clip.
I was thinking about calling it the Gulf of Trump, and I decided not to do it. I think maybe it was a wise. I think that one maybe wouldn't have worked out. I'm not so sure. You'll have to tell me. But I was thinking about it's going to be called the Gulf of Trump. And then I said, that's not going to play too well.
I think you're.
I'm kidding.
You're being facetious.
Now,
I know that, Mr. President. But what about oil exporters?
So while Donald Trump has these kind of grandiose, views of and unlawful views, let's be very clear, war criminal views, let's be even clearer, of changing the name of the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Trump, we're now actually seeing video of what went down when Iran stopped 2 United States Navy destroyers yesterday while the negotiations were taking place in Islamabad, Pakistan with Iran. Remember, the Trump regime sent 2 Navy destroyers into the Persian Gulf, and they were going to try to send it through the Strait of Hormuz. And then CENTCOM posted, we just did a successful mission. Our Navy destroyers went east and west through the Strait of Hormuz, and we were clearing all of the mines. And remember how we reported on the MeidasTouch network, and Bloomberg reported, and the Wall Street Journal reported. That didn't happen. What actually happened was quite embarrassing for the United States. I mean, yet another humiliation ritual. We sent our Navy destroyers to the Strait of Hormuz. The Iran Navy stopped it and said, we will fire upon you if you don't turn around. And the once very powerful United States Navy just turned itself around and did not go through the Strait of Hormuz, did not run any missions. Yet CENTCOM, which once was CENTCOM, I mean, it had a ton of credibility, just lied and said that it's a successful mission. Well, now there's video of what went down. Iranian television released footage from yesterday in the Strait of Hormuz, where the naval forces, which, yes, they still exist despite Donald Trump claiming they don't, the naval forces of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard warned a U.S. warship, stay away from the strait or we will be shooting and blowing you up. And then the U.S. ship turns around and goes the other way. And yes, Donald Trump and CENTCOM lied about what happened, as we told you they were. Play this clip.
Navy warship 121. This is Sepa Navy Station. You must alter course and go back to the Indian Ocean immediately. If you don't obey my order, you will be targeted. Out.
This is Coalition Warship 121. Engage in transit passage in accordance with international law. No challenge is attended to you.
U.S. Navy warship transiting in the vicinity Fujairah Port and Oman Sea. This is Sabah Navy. This is Sabah Navy. Last warning, last warning, last warning.
Close to High Island Port.
Attention all vessels, attention all vessels, attention all vessels in Oman Sea. This is Iranian Sepah Navy. If you see any warship in your vicinity, keep a distance more than 10 miles from them because I'm ready to open fire on them without any warning.
You also have Iranian social media continuing to mock the Trump regime. Their social media accounts are posting things like this. Every Gulf has a name, like the Gulf of Mexico and, of course, the Persian Gulf. Before Islamabad, we made clear, zero trust. We are ready for whatever comes next. And they show this photo, and it's Donald Trump with the shadow of Netanyahu in the Oval Office. True peace requires confronting the shadows governing the White House. And by the way, while the critical negotiations were taking place regarding the ceasefire in Islamabad, Pakistan, when Trump sent Witkoff and J.D. Vance and J.D. Vance, Witkoff, and Kushner to negotiate with the Iranians. What was Donald Trump doing? You know, Donald Trump was at the UFC fight. I did a video this morning which showed that Dana White had to hold Donald Trump's hand because Trump's physically and mentally deteriorating so quickly. But then Donald Trump went up to one of the UFC fighters during the fight and said how handsome he was. Like, Trump was like hitting on the UFC fighter. I just want you to try to wrap your head around this, right? While the United States was in this critical negotiation and Trump sent these negotiators to act in bad faith in Islamabad, Pakistan, Trump was at a UFC fight, like hitting on, like, does he want to like date the fighters? Like, you're so handsome, you're so good looking, oh, you're so strong and muscular. Here, play this clip.
Thank you. Go do what you're doing. You're a beautiful guy. Great fighter. Thanks. Put me to model. You'll win this top fight. I'll give you a model. You look so good. You're too good looking to be a fighter. You are some fighter. Thank you, man. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I just had to show that to you because what is happening with our country? What has happened to? I mean, this is absolute madness. And again, I don't care what political party you're with. This is madness. Okay, going back to Donald Trump's call to Maria Bartiromo, more talk about bombing Iran to the Stone Age. Let's play this clip.
Well, but in one half of a day, they wouldn't have one bridge standing. They wouldn't have one electric generating plant standing. And they're back in the Stone Ages. I'd rather not do that. But I do believe they're going to come to the table on this because nobody can be so stupid as to say that we want to have nuclear weapons and they have no cards. They have no cards whatsoever.
So if they do not give up that effort, is that the plan? Will you further destruct Iran?
Yeah, I will. If they don't give that plan up, yeah. I'm not in huge hurry. What we want to do is we'll open up the strait. But the ships are coming up to the United States.
Let's talk about that.
I've been inviting everybody. It's pretty good.
Let's talk about that, Mr. President.
By the way, I just find the coverage right now of what's taking place in Islamabad, Pakistan, the war coverage in general, I mean, by corporate media is just so bad. And it's been such an honor here at the MeidasTouch Network to be able to report the truth of what's really happening and keeping you multiple steps ahead of everything. So you knew about the 10-point negotiating framework weeks ago, right? That wasn't a shock to you. That's how we have to follow the truth every single day, by bringing the receipts. I just found this so interesting right here. You know, you have, this is the headline. You ready? Trump says empty tankers heading to the U.S. to load up with oil and gas, right? And Trump is saying that to one, he is clearly unfamiliar with the way oil markets work. And also he's trying to tell whatever remaining base he has that it's all good. Everyone's going to get their oil from the U.S., so we don't need the Strait of Hormuz, is basically the point that Donald Trump is making. And so if you just look at the distribution of coverage here, like right-wing media was all over this, and they were reporting, everybody, it's all good. Trump says the empty tankers are heading to the U.S. to load up with oil and gas. Okay, but the way oil works, there's an international market, there's WTI and Brent crude, and what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz impacts prices across the world. And so this is just, more propaganda being fed to kind of the right-wing base to distract them from what's really happening and the dire consequences that are unfolding. And I just think sorting through a lot of this coverage that's out there, it can just be a nightmare sometime, because depending on the outlets you're getting your information from, it's just an utter mess. You get different versions of events. All I want is the truth. And that's exactly why I partner with Ground News for this episode. And frankly, I use their news function for all of my episodes because they're the best tool for me to stay objective with my reporting. Ground News is an app and a website that pulls in thousands of articles from around the world and organizes them by story to show you how's the left, how's the center, how's the right framing stories differently. For every story, there's a color-coded layout that makes it easy to see the political bias of each source. I can filter for high factuality sources and see which sources are independently owned or owned by a large media conglomerate with corporate interests. This lets you compare reporting on the same issue in one place, so you can come to your own conclusions based on all the facts. On this article, for example, you can see the distribution about how right-wing was covering this more, which is why Ground News even has a dedicated blind spot feed, a personal favorite of mine, which highlights stories being disproportionately covered on either side of the political aisle to help burst through the echo chambers. Because I believe in Ground News so much, we're offering you 40% off the same Vantage plan that I use for my research here. Just go click the link in the description or go to ground.news/MTN or scan the QR code up here. It's one of the biggest discounts they've ever offered. If you want to support the channel and get a clearer understanding of the world, try out Ground News. Now back to my reporting right here. Iran's parliament leader, MB Ghalibaf, recently posted the following message. Before the negotiations with the United States, I emphasized that we have the necessary good faith and will, but due to the experiences of two previous wars, we have no trust in the opposing side. My colleagues on the Iranian delegation, which was called the Naval 168, it was named after the elementary school that the Trump regime bombed and killed over 165 little girls, raised forward-looking initiatives. But the opposing side, the United States, ultimately failed to gain the trust of the Iranian delegation in this round of negotiations. America has understood our logic and principles, and now it's time for it to decide whether it can earn our trust or not. We consider every mirror to be another method of authority diplomacy alongside military struggle for upholding the rights of the Iranian nation, and we will not for a moment cease our efforts to consolidate the achievements of the 40 days of Iran's national defense. I'm also grateful for the efforts of our friendly, brotherly country, Pakistan, in facilitating the process of these negotiations, and I send my regards to the people of Pakistan. Iran is a body with 90 million souls. From all the heroic people of Iran who, following the advice of the supreme leader and by taking to the streets, supported their children and sent us on our way with their blessings. For this, I am grateful. And to my colleagues in these intense 21-hour negotiations, I say, well done. God strengthen you. Long live and enduring be our dear Iran. So that's the message coming out of Iran right now. Contrast that to what Donald Trump continues to say. We're putting on a complete blockade, a complete blockade. Here, play this clip.
Tell us what you're trying to accomplish with this blockade,
all in,
sir.
All out. Yep. It's called all in and all out. There'll be a time when we'll have them all come in and all come out, but it won't be a percentage. It won't be a friend of yours, like a country that's your ally or a country that's your friend. It's all or nothing. And that'll be, that won't be in too long a distance. No, we're just bringing the ships up. We got a lot of ships, so we're bringing them up. We think that numerous countries are going to be helping us with this also, but we're putting on a complete blockade. We're not going to let Iran make money on selling oil to people that they like and not people that they don't like or whatever it is. It's going to be all or none, and that's the way it is. And it'll be, you saw what we did with Venezuela. It'll be something very similar to that, but at a higher level.
And Mr. President, you say that there may be a...
Or Donald Trump saying, I'm going to wipe out Iran in one day. Let's play it.
I could take out Iran in one day. I could take out in 1 hour. I could have their entire energy, everything, every one of their plants, their electric generating plants, which is a big deal. And I hate to do it because if I do it, it takes you 10 years to rebuild. They'll never be able to rebuild it. And the other thing you take out are the bridges. I took out one just to show them because they went public with a statement that wasn't true. They admitted it. I say, I'm going to take out a bridge. And I took out a bridge. And that was the end of that. Now they've been really behaving quite well. But in one half of a day, they wouldn't have one bridge standing. They wouldn't have one electric generating plant standing. And they're back in the Stone Ages.
Or Donald Trump saying, yeah, I'm good with destroying the whole civilization of Iran. This is what he said this morning. Let's play it.
Mr. President, you were criticized for this tweet because you said a whole civilization will die tonight. What do you want to say about that? And what can you tell us about next steps here? Are you planning further destruction?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. That statement brought them to the table, with the exception of the one thing, which I believe that they're going to give up on. I believe they're going to give up on that pretty soon, to be honest, because it's not going to work. We actually thought we had them, and then all of a sudden they said, no, we won't. So,
And then Donald Trump referred to the F-15E pilots who were purportedly recovered by the United States, although I think this entire story raises lots of question marks. Who are these F-15E pilots? Why were there 100 special forces involved? Why do we lose 2 C-130s, multiple helicopters, multiple MQ-9 Reaper drones? Why was it right next to the Isfahan facility? Why did we build an entire airstrip over there? Lots of questions. I mean, was this a failed mission to extract uranium from the Isfahan facility, and the F-15E pilot story was pretext and subterfuge and cover up for that? But Donald Trump now says we captured the pilots, referring to our own pilots as capturing our own pilots. Anyway, here, let's play this clip right here.
You don't get a fair shake. You don't get, we need a free and fair press in this country. And I don't even know why people would do that. Why would they say how wonderful they're doing militarily? They're doing so well. The country is wiped out. We lost one airplane and we captured the 2 pilots. How about we saved those 2 pilots?
Unbelievable.
Which no other country has the capability.
It's very bizarre phrasing. Also, everybody should pay attention right now to the strait that's in the Red Sea, right? We've been talking about the Strait of Hormuz. Focus on the strait in the Red Sea, because if this blockade is a real thing that Donald Trump is going to do, by the way, which is going to send crude prices, I think, above $115, $120 a barrel in no time, Iran's next logical move is activate the Houthis to basically shut down the Red Sea, and then that'll take the $115 per barrel up to $150 per barrel, and as this crisis escalates. This guy by the name of Danny Citronitz, he was a intelligence officer, by the way, from Israel, regarding Iran and regarding the Middle East. He's actually had spot-on analysis about the folly and the damage and danger and fatal errors being made by the Trump regime in Iran. And here's what he basically notes about all of this. The escalation now appears increasingly unavoidable, especially as Trump significantly raises the stakes with the blockade. Iran is unlikely to back down. It will likely test U.S. resolve by targeting American naval assets, while also attempting to disrupt commercial shipping through the Strait of Hormuz or deter tankers from transiting altogether. Such developments almost certainly trigger a sharp spike in global oil prices, with cascading second and third order effects, particularly across Asian economies that rely heavily on Gulf energy flows. At the same time, Iran will aim to project resilience and avoid appearing to capitulate under pressure. Further escalation would increase the likelihood of Houthi action in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait in the Red Sea, potentially threatening another critical maritime choke point. It would also raise the risk of Iranian strikes against infrastructure designed to bypass Hormuz, including pipelines such as the East-West Corridor. While Iran would sustain significant damage, it will attempt to maintain oil exports through alternative routes, like the Jask terminal, calculating the Gulf states may ultimately suffer greater economic harm. In any case, this is not a scenario with a clear winner, only varying degrees of loser. Although I would argue that Iran, China, and Russia are winners in all of this. China being the biggest, Russia being the second, the U.S. and NATO being the big losers in all of this. We'll keep you posted every step of the way, but that's what's happening this morning. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.